on screen recording. So today, when you go to today's Moodle page, there's two things you'll download. First of all, there's the Shape Monster Illustrator file. There's also the project steps that I just passed out to you, and there's also an exercise file that we'll work through for today. Today I'm going to show you how to create gradients of color in vector illustration. And this project is what's going to be due today. The Shape Monster project is one we'll finish up afterwards. So main thing is get this one done and turn it in on time. When you do download the gradient exercise, this is what it looks like. Actually, it looks like I already had it open. And that's the other project we'll get to. Cute little guy. When I say a gradation of color, what do I mean? Or a gradient of color. Bingo, exactly. You're getting a blending of two different colors, or two or more different colors. Now we've learned in Illustrator, especially when creating shapes or creating any type of object, there's two colors to pay attention to. You've got your fill color and you've got your stroke color. For now, I'm just going to create, I've got my rectangle tool I'll pull off to the side. So if I create a fill color with this rectangle, it's going to fill it in with white, or I can double click on it and fill it in with one solid color. But if I wanted to fill it in with more than one type of color, I have to change up what kind of fill color it is. If you look in just below the swatches, there's a small button in the center. This is your gradient color tool. When you click on this one, and I've got this object selected, it's going to convert it from a solid color into multiple colors. And by default, black and white is usually what's going to come up. Now when you work in gradients, there's a palette that you need to have open. That's your gradient palette. It's usually one that's located off here on the right-hand side. I've got mine already pulled out. If you don't see your gradient palette, as with any other one, you can go to Window and make sure Gradient is checked off. And so there it is from there. There's a couple of things that you need to know about this palette that helps you control how you can blend colors together. First of all, there's two types of gradients you can create. By default, a linear gradient, as the name would suggest, goes in a straight line. It goes from one side to the other side of the object that you had. The other type of gradient you can have is called a radial gradient. This one is in a circular fashion. It goes from a central point and radiates outward. You can, let's see, I'm going to go back to the linear gradient. You can control the angle that the gradation is blending in. So in this case, the angle right here in your gradient palette is set to 0. If I wanted to go from one corner down to another corner, I can type in 45 degrees. And so now it's starting at the bottom left-hand corner to the top right is where it's going at as well. You can also click on the little arrow and kind of adjust it through a slider and be able to give a specific point that way as well. So if I wanted to go from top to bottom, 90 degrees, and that'll work out as well. So that's the easiest part to know about controlling a gradient, what type it is and what angle it goes with. Here's how you can change up the colors of a gradient. By default, you need to have at least two colors to be blending in. If you don't, it's just a solid color. This is where your gradient slider comes in. You can see that the first color is white and the second color is black. I can click on any one of these colors and move where the start and stopping point of the gradation should be. So if I wanted it to start blending right here and going up, that's where I can adjust it from there. Same way for my stopping point. So I can easily click and drag any one of these points, getting real close together, and you can see all that's suggesting is how quickly or slowly the transition from one color to the other color would be. If you want to change up a color, also notice when I click and drag, it changes the location number down here, gives it a percentage of the line. That's important to remember when we get into our project. But to change up a color, double click on any one of these swatches. So if I wanted to change it from white to say red, double click. It'll bring up a color picker. There's usually two color pickers. The one on the top, this is your little color mixer. In this case, it's only mixing black and white. I'm going to click on the second icon. This will give us some default color swatches. Now, in this case, let's choose, say, red. And so now it'll go from, I can click off and it'll close it out, from red to black. Let me open up the color picker again. Double click. In this case, if I clicked on this top color, now I've got my CMYK, and I can give it any color value that I want. Change it up to an orange, go down to pink, make it lighter or darker from there. And that's what those two color pickers allow you to do. For our projects that we'll be doing today, mainly you'll be working in the predefined color swatches. You'll be using these colors or these browns to create your little shapes monster later on. Click off, same thing. So if I want to go from this tan color to say a blue color, double click on the swatch, and now it'll blend between those two. All cool? Very simple, very easy things. If you want to blend more than one color, that's easy to do as well. Click anywhere just below the gradient slider. Notice how my cursor has, it's turned white and has a little plus sign. If I click anywhere below it, it'll add another color swatch to there. And I can move that one around. Double click on it, and I can add another color. So if I wanted to go from tan to say red to blue, so now I've changed up that color swatch. You can add as many color swatches as you want to a slider just by clicking below it and then choosing the color that you want it to go to. Well, let's make it something we can see. So a light blue to dark blue, and then you can adjust where it's going to go to from there. You get very psychedelic, very funky colors very quickly with this. Also, you'll notice when I click and drag my swatches, I've got this little diamond shape that's above the color slider. This diamond shape will allow me to, let's say I wanted to keep this one right here, but I still wanted to be able to adjust how quickly it'll fade from one color to another. And this is gives me the gradation change between those two colors as well. So I can drag those, or I can drag how quickly it changes. If you ever want to erase a color, so I've added colors to here by clicking below. There's two ways you can do it. First of all, you can click on a color swatch and just drag it off. It'll automatically snap off and be removed from there. Another way you can do it is to click on the color swatch just once and then click the little trash can icon, and that'll delete it as well. So for whatever reason you're having trouble, just select the swatch, click the trash can, and that'll work from there. Clicking below will add it from there. All cool? So y'all good for adding colors and changing it up? There is a tool that allows you to easily manipulate gradients as well within an object. This is called the Gradient Tool. If you look on the right hand side towards the middle of your toolbox, it looks like a square with a little gradient. With this one, when I have this tool selected, it'll give me this bar, usually going across the direction of the gradient that I've created, in this case from top to bottom. I can click and drag, and on the fly tell it what direction I want the gradient to go. And you can see when I hover over it, it gives me my little color slider, and it allows me to adjust my gradient from there as well. Pretty cool? Starting and stopping point, I can change that around. If I want it to be just a real quick one from there, I can even click off down here and drag, and it'll still start the gradation here and slowly move it up into this particular area as well. I think, let me check something out. In older versions, in this version of Illustrator, you can't add a gradient to a stroke color. Stroke color has to be a solid. I think in the newer ones, I know you can. Let me make this one bigger, and let's see if we can actually add a gradient to the stroke. That'll answer that question. So I've got it selected. Remember to convert any solid color to a stroke. I'm going to click on this, and looks like it doesn't work. So y'all forget that I even said that. In later versions, you can actually add a gradient to a stroke, and it's helpful. It works out. For these projects, we're not going to need to know that as well. Let me show you what this looks like. Let's make a circle. Holding down Shift will give you that perfect circle. I'm going to get rid of my stroke. Remember, you can click on that bottom right-hand side. That'll get rid of the stroke. In this case, I'm going to turn it into, say, a radial type gradient. This is a great way of creating like a spherical type type gradient that you want to create. I'm going to choose my gradient tool. I can click and drag out from here. You can see now it's radiating from the center point outward. Let's see if I got it perfectly down to there. Now it looks pretty much like a ball. You've got a highlight point, you've got a darker shade inside of it. With it selected, I can also click on the outer edges and adjust the size of this one. If I clicked on this point, I can adjust the angle or how much skewed it is, so it gets much more narrow for what we're working with. And all of this is done just with the gradient tool that I'm working with. But also make sure you have your gradient palette open. Makes it a lot easier to add and change up colors from there. For your exercise, you're going to download this one. I want you to practice creating some gradients. So when you download these, there'll be some rectangles, some circles, and a large rectangle down here. Underneath it, what I want you to do is to create the gradient and use whatever colors that are on here. So in this case, I want to use a linear gradient. So I'm going to select this box, turn on my gradient by clicking down the center portion. Make sure it's a linear gradient, so I need to change that one out. And then I want it to go from green to blue. I'm not going to be picky about what particular type of green, so you can choose those type of colors. So I need to erase this one, double click on this one, choose a green, and double click on this one and choose a blue. So green to blue, that's what I'm looking for. Here's another thing to keep in mind. When I select this object again, and then I turn on my gradient, it's going to remember the last gradient that I created. So I'm going to have to definitely go back and rechange what I'm working in. But for this one, it's going to go for 3 different colors, white to green to blue, and I want it to be at a specific angle. So let's do this real quick. Hey, I've already got green on here. I can slide this one over, click right here, and make that one white. And check that out. I've already got it created because it remembered the last one. All I've got to do is change up the angle. So I'm going to type in 33 in my gradient box, and it'll go from there as well. Let's see. Same way down here, you're going to do radial gradients, linear gradients, and the very last one, you're going to do the mother of all gradients. You're going to add all those colors through the whole spectrum to work for from there. All good? So that's the easy thing. Let me show you the fun project that we're going to make. You're going to make a little shape monster. Isn't he so cute? Okay. You're going to recreate this guy. If it's off by a little bit, it doesn't have to be 100% perfect just like mine. You can add your own flair to it. But the main thing is I want you to practice creating the shapes and creating the gradients on this shape. This guy's made up of every shape that we've already learned, and also we're going to add the pencil tool and the brush tool to create the grass and to create his hair up here. So this will give you some practice making those vector shapes and changing those up. I'm not going to make you watch me create the whole thing, but I do want to show you some things to be aware of when you step through here. So I've kind of started creating mine. I'm going to lock down the background just so I don't accidentally click on it. So for instance, remember last time we talked about grouping objects together. So when you create his eyes are made up of 1, 2, 3, 4 different circles. So I'm going to create his eye really quickly. Let's see, click and drag, got my perfect circle. Outer one's going to be kind of a darker. I'm going to create another circle inside of it. Here's an easy little tip. This would make for a great bonus question. Notice when I make a circle, I click and drag, it goes from the outer edge outward. It's very hard to line up exactly where that's going to be right in the center point of the other circle. Here's how you can make a circle from the center point outward. Hold down your Option key, and notice my cursor crosshair has a little circle in it. With my Option key held down, when I click and drag, it makes a circle from the center point outward. Also, if I hold down my Shift key, I can get that perfect circle. And this one, I need to change it to black. And then I can just nudge it over. I'm going to use my arrow keys. That's going to nudge it kind of into place for there. Then all I got to do is make 2 lighter circles for the inside little areas. Also, here's another great little tip. If you hold down your space bar, you can move it around. Did I show you all that? About how you can use your space bar? Before I let up on my mouse, I can move around where my object is going to be, and then I can place it specifically there. Same thing for a little one here. So I've got one eye created. Oh, that's a huge eye. I just realized how big that one's going to be. Okay. Instead of selecting each one of these or clicking and dragging over, make sure you can group them together so I can click on them all at once. So I've got them selected. Go to Object, choose Group. Notice Command G is the hotkey for there. So now, if I want to click on it, I can just easily click once and it gets the whole thing. Let's move both of his eyes out of the way. Click and drag there. Do y'all remember the keyboard shortcut to quickly make a copy of something? Exactly. Hold down your Option key. I've got my Move tool, my black arrow. So I'm going to Option and drag. And so now I've got another copy quickly made on the fly from there. So that was, he's got huge eyes. That is going to bother me. I'm going to make one really small. So now he's got a wonky eye. The second thing is how his mouth is created. This is one I want you to pay attention to. Notice that, I'll go back to my original. His mouth is made up of 4 different parts. You've got a straight line for the top of his mouth, and then you've got 2 half circles for his teeth, and 1 half circle for the bottom portion of his mouth. So when you create this one, to create the half circle, I'm going to choose my ellipse tool, click and drag, and just make a regular ellipse. And in this case, it's going to be white. Actually, you're going to make a gradient out of it, so I'll go ahead and make that one. I'm going to move the white up, and this is going to be a darker gray. What I'm going to ask you to do is to delete the topmost point from this circle. To delete just one point, we need to use our direct selection tool, so our white arrow, and then I want you to, choose the arrow first. I want you to click and drag over just that top point. Notice that this one is selected, all the other ones, they look hollow. If I hit my delete key, it's going to delete that one away, and now I've got my half circle created. That's how I did that for the teeth. So you're just going to click and drag, make a circle, and then you're going to use your white arrow to select that top point and delete it. And that's how you've got your teeth and also the lower portion of this one to be created as well. All cool for that one? Very easy, very cool. The rest of these, for his arm, kind of the same thing. You're going to make a circle, and you're going to stretch out that topmost point. So once you click on it and drag it out, that gives you that tear shape that's used for his arm and also for his feet down here at the bottom. The last thing I want to show you is how to use the pen tool and the pencil tool. The pencil tool, we kind of talked a little bit about it. What's the purpose of the pencil tool? It's advantage over the pen tool or the other ones. Oh, were y'all paying attention? The pencil tool allows you to do free-form drawing. So with the pencil tool, I'm going to go ahead and just select this one so it'll pick up. I can click and drag over and draw off his hair. And when I let go, it gives me that perfect line that I'm creating from here. So with this one, you're going to use your pencil tool and just draw them off some hair to give them at the top. At the bottom, however, I want it to look like grass. And so for this one, we're going to use the Paintbrush Tool. What's the difference of the Paintbrush Tool? And pause for answer. Okay. The Paintbrush Tool, this is the one that mimics real life traditional media. In this case, I want it to look like the little paint strokes. I want it to have that jagged edge to it as we go through it. So with this one, I want you to choose your Paintbrush Tool. And to find that paintbrush, I used one of these over here. In this case, I think I used this one. It'll be over in your brushes palette, by the way. So if you don't see your brushes palette, it's one of the ones off to the right-hand side. Go to Window. Make sure you can choose brushes from there. What I did was I chose 3 different colors of green. So I used a dark green, a medium green, and a light green. So I'm going to choose, let's say, go back over here. By the way, it's not a fill color, so I'm going to turn my fill off. My stroke color is going to be, say, a darker green. So I've chosen darker green. And I click and drag. That's going to give me my grass that's on top of here. You can add more or less detail. I'm going quickly with this. After this one, I'm going to choose a lighter color of green. So I'll choose a medium, and then go through medium colors. One large one. And then go through and choose an even lighter shade of green as well. We're going to practice more with the Paintbrush Tool. I'm actually going to show you how you can make your own paintbrushes in Adobe Illustrator. It'll be a lot of fun using that one as well. All good for that one? Last thing, before I even forget, in your document instructions, I'd say to use different shades of brown to create this, a tan, a medium, and a dark brown. All the brown colors that I'm using are these colors in your swatches palette up here. those default colors that are already in your system as well. So if you need to find them, that's where I got those from as well. All right. I'm going to turn it over to you, let y'all practice with the gradient stuff. And if you have any questions, as always, just let me know.